And joining us now to unpack all of this is political analyst Keith Leslie. Keith, it looks like the week started off with some tough talk from Canada, and then it eased off a bit at the end. Do you think this is a good thing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Doug Ford had to strategically back off. I mean, he certainly got the White House's attention when he announced he was going to put a 25% tariff on the electricity going to those three northern states. And of course, we saw Trump not only got his attention, he reacted with a 50% tariff, doubling the tariff on steel and aluminum. So that was obviously, you poke the bear, you got to expect that kind of a reaction. But I think, again, Ford, wisely, when they called and, started complaining about this, he begged for a meeting, he pushed for a meeting with the U.S. Commerce Secretary, and he got that meeting. And he said the whole point of the meeting was to, lower the temperature, defuse things. So I think Ford achieved what he wanted to achieve there. As I say, he got the White House's attention, and then he strategically backed off that 25%. I think more than anything, though, it was the threat he made of actually turning off the electricity completely that absolutely pushed the White House into saying, okay, boom, 50% tariffs right back. So they pushed back, but overall it seemed to lower the temperature by the end of the week.
Now, Premier Ford stepping into the middle of this at a time when one prime minister was leaving and another was coming in. How do you think he handled everything that happened this week?
I think he did very well, quite frankly. I think Canadians actually respect Doug Ford for what they're seeing him do, for this standing up to Trump, taking no prisoners type attitude. You're going to push us, we're going to push back, although not being obstinate about it. When they pushed back, we gave a little bit, to get the meeting, to get some more hearings, and, to be able to push our case person to person in Washington. So I think Ford, as we saw in that clip, Trump didn't name him, but he said there's a strong man in Ontario who agreed to back off that 25% tariff on electricity. So he not only got the White House's attention, he appears to got a little bit of respect from Donald Trump. That's a hard thing to do. So when we're changing from one prime minister to another, Doug Ford stepped up as the chairman of the Council of Federation, the Council of all the premiers, and he did a pretty good job in Washington this week, I thought.
What's your take on Carney's actions so far?
Well, he's sending all the right signals, isn't he, for the most part. I mean, the very first thing he did with his cabinet was to sit in public, brought the cameras in, and sign a thing like Donald Trump does in public, an executive order to get rid of the carbon tax right away, although they're going to keep the carbon tax check rebates for the ones coming in April. So I thought that was no one can campaign on a carbon tax promise, so I thought that was smart of him to do that. He also, in bringing or leaving rather Katrina Gould outside of the cabinet. I thought he should have brought her in, as opposed to bringing in Chrystia Freeland when he said, that she's so closely tied to the Trudeau government. The Carney and the Conservatives are, Poilievre and the Conservatives are already using that against Carney, that she's still in his cabinet, so close to Trudeau. I would have left her out and brought in Gould as the younger member of cabinet. But other than that, I think he's sending all the right signals, especially with his intention. He's going to go to England and France for his first foreign trips. He's in no rush to go to Washington and perhaps get beat up by Donald Trump in public.
Now, you've covered a lot of politics over the years. How does this trade war compare to other historic events in this country?
Well, it's pretty much unprecedented in a sense. I mean, we've certainly had our, other than, a couple hundred years ago when we were at war with the United States. Other than that, the only thing that comes to mind was the FLQ crisis in 1970s, the early 1970s. And that was an entirely internal thing. And the country was as scared as, now the country in many ways is scared and frightened of what Trump could do, trying to take us over, threatening the 51st state and all that kind of stuff. So we had that at the FLQ crisis. People were very nervous about the future of the country. And it was, troops in the streets in Quebec. It was a very scary time, but that was a completely internal threat. This is an external threat, almost unprecedented, I think, in our history, certainly in modern times.